Welcome to Real World AIP, the YouTube channel dedicated exclusively to helping you implement the autoimmune protocol, but it might also be helpful if you're on any healing diet or just looking to eat healthier, more whole food. Today I want to talk about ways to incorporate more shellfish into your diet, and why would you want to incorporate more shellfish into your diet. You've probably heard how important it is to eat liver. Liver is a superfood, liver is so important, and that is so true. I think what gets overlooked is shellfish. And when I say shellfish, I mean specifically mollusks. Clams, our little necks, cherry stone clams, all the clams, quahogs, mussels, and oysters. They are incredibly nutrient dense, and that term gets thrown around a lot. So before I get into all the ways to incorporate shellfish into your diet, no matter where you live or what your cooking skills are, let's just take a look at the nutrition compared to like chicken and beef. Look at what these mollusks have to offer. I'm going to do 4 ounces cooked of each of these. So 4 ounces of cooked clams, 27 grams of protein. Look at this, B12, 880%. B12 is really important if you suffer from fatigue. Beautiful amount of selenium, that's an important antioxidant. And also they have a bit of iron, 17%, so okay. Now let's look at oysters. Here we go, 4 ounces of cooked oysters, some B vitamins, 820% of your B12. You're getting a ton of copper there. Look at that zinc, like 1000%. You don't need to eat 4 ounces of oysters. You could just have like 1 or 2 oysters a day. Just pop them out of your freezer, the ones you've pre-cooked. And you're getting all the zinc. Great source of selenium. Also more iron than clams. So oysters are a bit more of a superfood than clams. The thing is, they're also way more expensive. Let's look at mussels. Mussels are super economical. 4 ounces cooked mussels, 27 grams of protein. Now look at this, you're getting a decent amount of B vitamins here. B12 over 1000%. Even a good amount of folate. Vitamin C. Copper, iron, 42% for just a small serving. 4 ounces is not that much. Also selenium and 38% zinc, not too shabby. Now let's compare these to something like chicken, because in the end these are all proteins, right? So you're planning a meal and you pick a protein. Okay, let's compare this to if you pick chicken. Skinless chicken breast, 4 ounces, 35 grams of protein. Chicken is a great source of niacin, but B12 only 16%. Iron only 7%. Iron's also important in fighting fatigue. Selenium 50%, not too bad. Also, a lot of times we use the term shellfish collectively, but what about shrimp? Is that as good as oysters, mussels, and clams? So 4 ounces cooked shrimp, 25 grams protein. They're all good for that. B12, 78%. It's like a decent amount in there. It's better than chicken. No iron to speak of. 2% on the iron. Good amount of selenium. They're not a zinc superstar like the oysters. So, it's okay. It's not like the star of the show like the oysters and mussels and the clams are. But it's okay to include in your diet. But then again, you have to worry about how they raise the shrimp, You don't want it farmed from Thailand. There's just so many toxins in there. The one nice thing about clams, mussels, and little necks is it's actually okay. This is one of the few things it's okay to get farmed. Yeah. It's been hammered home over and over. Always get, wild caught seafood and grass-fed beef, pastured pork. And this is all very true. There's one exception. You need shellfish, not all shellfish, like shrimp. You want to make sure it is wild caught, product of USA. I think the shrimp from Argentina is okay, but wild, always wild. The thing with clams, mussels, and little necks are they can be healthily and sustainably farmed. They actually do it in the ocean, and they're not being treated with antibiotics, and the concerns we have around like farmed salmon just aren't there. Talking about nutrient density and protein foods, let's just look compared to beef. Since we did chicken, beef is going to have, for 4 ounces cooked, 34 grams of protein, almost 100% of B12. So it's no mussel or clam, but it's certainly decent. I was really surprised by this when I first started looking into these things. Iron in beef, like 18% or 4 ounce portion. It's really not that impressive to me. I always thought of beef as like, you eat red meat for iron, but really you get so much more from shellfish. So if you have iron deficiency anemia or something like that, instead of, you know, looking to eat a lot of steak or whatever, maybe look more into your seafood options, especially oysters and mussels and also octopus. Octopus is loaded with iron and B12. You know, beef is a good source of zinc, 64%. I mean, oysters have 1000%, but you know, it's good, it's good. And just for comparison, let's look at some liver. 4 ounces of beef liver, 33 grams of protein. Whoa, do you see these lines? Okay, the B1 is low there, but mussels have loads of B1, and so does pork. So, you know, this is a case for eating a wide variety of foods and not relying on one thing like chicken every day, every meal, chicken. This is impressive. Now, this is why we keep saying eat your liver, eat your liver, eat your liver. Look at that, over 3,000% of your B12 there. This is important, this retinol vitamin A, because many of us don't convert beta carotene into vitamin A. So that, you know, sweet potato vitamin A didn't do a thing for you. And then minerals loaded with copper. You know, 41% iron, not bad, not bad. Selenium, zinc, healthy amount. And that's why we call liver a superfood. You ready to eat more shellfish? All right, the top 3, oysters, mussels, clams. But there's so many forms you can get them in. So let's talk first about the form that anybody can get anywhere very easily. To start you off, okay? Canned and bottled. You could buy these on Amazon. You don't even have to leave the house. For oysters, I will link below to the canned oysters that I've used in the past. I do not like them on their own. I made a pate with them. It was okay, but I didn't make it again. I have a little secret how I use canned oysters, or fresh or frozen, but I put it in my hidden liver. And now you're like, what? Listen, I know this sounds crazy, but I'm gonna do a video someday. I'm gonna show you my recipe, but it's delicious. Just like 1 can of oysters, smoked, not smoked, doesn't matter. Chop them, mix it with ground beef. Like 1 can of oysters to like 2 pounds of ground beef, 3 pounds of ground beef. It's just gonna give you such a nutritional boost to that beef, and it tastes delicious. It adds this like briny element that you don't taste oyster. It just tastes like pimped out burger. I fell on this because I had some smoked oysters and I don't like them. I do not like canned oysters, and I just wanted to use. I don't like throwing away food either, so I blended them into my hidden liver beef scramble, and I was like, this is the best hidden liver beef. This is bad. I will buy them on purpose now. But I tend to lean more towards getting the frozen. But we'll get to that in the frozen section. But yeah, 3 pounds of beef, 1 pound of liver, and 8 ounces of oyster. Try it. It's amazing. Okay, so that's what you do with canned oysters. Canned mussels, I've never seen those. I don't know if those exist, so, okay. And canned clams. Now you can get canned clams, you can get clam juice too. And clam juice has all the B12 in it, just like the whole clams. So if you want something super convenient, I'll put a link to where you can get this on Amazon. You can use the clam juice in stir fries. Just instead of water, you know, sometimes the pan starts to brown a little too much, you need some liquid to toss in there. It's delicious. You can also use it as a base for like a clam chowder. Freeze this in cubes so it'll last indefinitely. You can add a splash of this to anything. It'll kind of, the flavors will mesh. You won't know what's in there. You can poach fish with this. You know, just pour a little of this in the pan, get it heated up, put your fish in there, cover it, and just let it, you know, cook. Canned clams. I have a video where I make clam chowder, but that's kind of more like labor intensive, I feel like. And here's the other thing. What if you hate the texture of clams? You don't want that chewy. I developed a pureed bisque recipe that you can use these in. It's a very simple, minimal ingredient, absolutely delicious. I'm going to show you at the end of this video. In a pinch, I make what I call travel chowder. I literally open the can and I add in coconut milk and like maybe a little seasoning, a little salt. So canned, we've covered canned. Now let's get to frozen. Okay. Almost any grocery store or seafood store, I know there's a seafood store where you live, there's gotta be, like, I'm pretty sure, but if not, let's say you live like a half an hour from a seafood shop. I feel like even your local grocery store will sell some form of chopped clams. Just make sure there's no preservative in it. These were at Whole Foods and they were a little pricey. They were like $7.99, but it's a full pound, so that's not really that bad. And you can use this in my pureed clam bisque that I'm going to make later too. You can also use this in like the clam chowder recipe. You can also thaw them slightly, portion them out into ice cube trays. I show you how I did that in this meal prep video. And then you could use that to just throw a few cubes of clams into a stir fry. Clams just add a beautiful umami and a little bit of new textures. If you want ideas on how to put together a stir fry with shellfish in it, I have the egg roll in a bowl video. I'll link to that. And then mussels. I found these at Whole Foods. I gotta admit, I don't love these. They're not that delicious. I eat them for the nutrition, I'm just being honest. And oysters, you can buy frozen shucked oysters and they're way cheaper. They're so much cheaper than buying them fresh. I did an experiment, okay? I went to Whole Foods was having a sale on the big Katuit oysters. They're big oysters. So you get like 2 or 3 oysters for each oyster you buy. I got a dozen big oysters for $1 each, so it was, you know, $12. I shucked them and I weighed what I got and it was a half a pound. So $12 for a half pound of oysters. So $24 a pound for oyster meat. Where like these mussels cost $6.49 a pound. You know, these clams were $7.99 for the pound. I went searching and digging around the internet. I went searching and digging locally. I can get them frozen shucked at my local Tony's Seafood. These end up being $19 a pound. So that's where I get mine. I did find a great deal on frozen oysters, a Vital Choice, which is mind-blowing because Vital Choice typically has very pricey seafood. It's very well sourced, it's very healthy, but it's way out of my price range. I always look at the price per pound. But for some reason, and I hope they don't see this and go, oh yeah, we're not charging enough and raise the price. But they have a great deal on oysters. If you get enough to get the free shipping, it ends up being $18.88 a pound, which is comparable to my local Tony's. It's very hard to find seafood shops that sell pre-shucked frozen oysters. I had to call around. I like to do detective work. What to do with them? You could absolutely, definitely use these in the pureed bisque I'm going to show you how to make. And hidden liver scrambles and mixing with ground beef. I puree them first and I mix them with the ground beef. I'll do a video on that someday. Also, you can buy them fresh and freeze them. Don't see many people doing this, but it works out just fine. Like, I have some in the freezer right now. I'll show you. I bought these mussels. Oops. I bought these mussels the other day and I said, oh, you know, I'll leave some in the fridge and I want some for later. Because here's the thing. Now, I have a whole video on how to make clam cubes out of fresh little necks, mussels, and oysters, and the video is here. I will link to that below. But sometimes you want the shell because the shell adds flavor. I just popped the whole live fresh mussel in the freezer, and these are raw and they're just frozen, and now I could just use them just as if I had just bought them and they were unfrozen. And do the same thing. Pop them in the freezer if you have the space. And sometimes you find unique things like at the Asian market or whatever, and I always pick them up if it's like wild, no preservatives. I'll try anything. I found these wild caught Arctic surf clams. These are really cool looking. I'll probably like throw these into a stir fry or something. They're red, I don't know, just why the heck not? Product of Alaska, no additives, sure. There's some clam cubes that I have hanging out so you can see what they look like, but basically these are, I just steamed the live little necks. I removed the shell. After they steamed and popped open, I took them out of the shell and then I froze them. I froze them in individual ice cubes, so now these I can just throw right into any stir fry I want, just like I did in the egg roll in a bowl. Say you're making a little piece of salmon in the pan, you can throw in a couple of clams, just added nutrition. All right, so there's frozen. Let's go over fresh. Out of clams or little necks, oysters, and mussels, mussels have the shortest lifespan. I'm not sure why. I try to eat them the day I buy them or the next day. First things first, I always check to make sure that each one is alive, and I rinse them really good. You can tell it's alive because it's sealed. It's not open. But sometimes they're taking a nap, see? So see how that's open? He might be alive. I squeeze him a couple times to see if he will close up. Or I'll even like tap him on something light not to kill it if he is alive, he, she. And your nose is always a great indicator too. But see, so, you know, I think a lot of mussels get thrown away because people think they're dead when they're not. I mean, they won't do that if they're dead. They won't ever close up and stay closed on their own. Sniff it, you will definitely know if it's dead. So I'm just gonna rinse these in cold water, and there's nothing to really scrub. If you get some dirty ones, you can scrub them. I'm gonna put them in a bowl. One bad mussel will ruin the whole batch or whatever food you're making. Always use your nose as a test. What I love about mussels is that they're so cheap. I got 2 pounds for $2.99 on sale. Like, this is the cheapest shellfish, and they're a total superfood. By the way, if you're gonna store these overnight, make sure they're not in a pool of water. Like, that shouldn't be like all a pool, because they can drown. And you want to keep them moist, so I take a paper towel and I soak it, and then I lay that on top. Oh, and they are alive, and they will suffocate, so don't keep them in a plastic bag, or like the grocery store plastic bag. They will suffocate. You gotta treat them like your little fridge pets. One other mistake people make, they'll put them on ice in the fridge. Well, the ice melts and then they drown. So just like this in the bowl, and I'm gonna cover them with a moist paper towel. Clams! There's different names for them. They can be sold as little necks. Sometimes they'll call them cherry stones. The giant ones, they call them quahogs up here in New England, or quahogs if you're not from here. They're all just clams. So, I mean, the small ones are a little more tender and sweet, I guess, but not enough for me to notice a big difference. So I just kind of get whatever this size is. Okay, whatever's cheaper, to be honest. These are little necks. They were 58 cents each, which isn't bad because they're 75 cents a piece at Whole Foods. Anyway, you can make clam cubes out of them, or you can store them in the freezer, or you can keep these in your fridge for like a week. Now, I'm not suggesting you do that because I don't know how fresh they are, but if you get them fresh, then, and you know, they just came into the seafood shop a day ago or whatever, these babies will live for a week in your fridge. So the mussels you gotta use right away. These, you have a couple more days leeway. I just like to rinse them, scrub them clean, put them in a bowl, cover them with a damp paper towel. And these little fridge pets you can use throughout the week. Don't forget to check, make sure they're alive. One bad clam will make the whole pot of steamed clams just awful. So they should be sealed shut. And if you get one that's taken a nap, enough of this and enough of tapping, and it eventually should seal shut and stay shut on its own, or it's dead. Do not want dead clams. And I always do a strong smell check after I've rinsed them all. I have my bowl of clams. I just kind of get in there and make sure you don't smell anything off, because trust me, once you get burned by a bad clam, you are extra careful in the future. I think I'll freeze these in portions of 6 at a time. That just seems like a nice amount to throw into whatever I'm making. These are going to take up more freezer real estate than the clam cubes, which take up none. But those shells, these mineral-rich shells, just add flavor. They create a seafood stock as you're cooking them. And, you know, they trap all those yummy seafood juices. I'll keep the rest of these in my fridge for the week. All right. Here's a perfect example of a dead one. Unmistakable. Does not close back up. No amount of anything. He just died like within the last 24 hours, so doesn't smell bad, but dead. And last but definitely not least, oysters. So these are the more expensive of the 3. They're also the most loaded with zinc. Like, eating 2 of these a day is, maybe even just 1, depending on the size, you're gonna have all the zinc you need. When you cook these, they don't pop open as much as a clam. A clam, like, you know, it's done. Like, pop, pops open. These just kind of crack open a little, and sometimes they don't even all the way, so it's a little tougher to tell if they're alive. So I always do the smell test after I rinse these too, and these do usually need to be scrubbed with a kitchen brush or something. They tend to have a lot of sand on them. Lifespan in the fridge, not as long as clams, a little longer than mussels, but it depends on how old they are. And the best way to store these is with the flat part up. See how this is rounded and then that part's flat? This is the best way to store them in the fridge. And then you know, the same way as the clams, covered with the moist paper towel. That'll help keep some of the moisture in there. Now, with the oysters, I do not put them whole in the shell into stir fries because you will get bits of shell. These little shell pieces break off very easily. They're not as sturdy as little necks and mussels or any clams. So for these, I say go eat them on the half shell, you know, shuck them. By the way, shucking is a steep learning curve and you can get hurt. So if you're going to try it, there's great YouTube tutorials on it. Wear gloves, get protective gloves. These are just so much more convenient and inexpensive to buy frozen, already shucked. And I will put a link below to where you can get a great deal on those. This recipe I developed was for a lady named Sandra. I made this recipe with frozen shucked clam meat, but you could totally use fresh steamed. You could use your frozen clam cubes or oyster cubes. You could use frozen oysters and it's going to be amazing. So here's a great way. Also canned, you can use canned. So basically you're going to want to start with a pound of clams or oysters and their juice. So if you're using the mussels, frozen mussels, there's no juice, it's all meat. So I'm going to go with like 3/4 of a pound on the mussels because it's all meat. But anyway, 3/4 to 1 pound of frozen, fresh, canned, whatever kind of shellfish. So get you started. And I am most skeptical of making things taste good with frozen mussels. Frozen mussels are, you have to work them into things. They don't taste good on their own. But they're so nutritious that I keep playing with them to find out what I can do with them that'll actually taste good. Where the clams, the canned clams, frozen clams are sweet and mild and neutral and tasty, and you know, so once you puree them, the texture's not an issue either. Easy peasy. But I'm gonna try this with mussels today. So, okay, first thing is first. I'm gonna saute some onion and some extra virgin olive oil, a little garlic, and some dry thyme. So I'm going to add 1 tablespoon. This is like 3/4 of a cup sliced. And I'm also going to add 3 or 4 cloves of minced garlic. I'm also going to add a full teaspoon of dry thyme. And cook this until your onion's soft, medium to medium-high heat. You're going to get a nice brown going on the bottom of the pan. And when you see that happen, we'll add our shellfish. See what I mean? Right about now, we're going to throw in that pound of clams, or 3/4 pound of mussels, or oyster. You can go ahead and use it frozen and just thaw it like this. Once that's all thawed out, we'll go to the next step. And if it's getting smoky, you can add a little water to the bottom, just like that, to help thaw it out. That was maybe 1/4 cup. All right, these are all thawed, blended in well, the onions are cooked through. Now we're going to transfer this whole thing to the blender. I'm going to put my cold ingredients in there first. I'm going to add 1/2 cup of coconut milk, but don't worry if you can't have coconut. You can use water, or you could use vegetable stock, which I think would be really nice, or you could use any kind of seafood stock, bottled clam juice, and then also add a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil for creaminess. 1/2 cup flavorful liquid with about a tablespoon worth of fat. In my case, I'm using a 1/2 cup of coconut milk, and also a 1/2 cup of water, or stock would be fine. And then I'm going to add the whole mix from the pan into that. I'm not using a metal utensil for once. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of salt to this. I swear to you, I have never enjoyed frozen mussels this much. This is delicious. There's really such a nice flavor. It doesn't need bacon. It doesn't need all the other fun things I could have thrown in there. Oh, one thing though, because there is absolutely no acidity in this dish, and I'm not missing it, but it'll really bring it to a new level. A squeeze of lemon juice, and if you have some fresh dill laying around, oh, let's do that. Let's put this in a bowl. You could puree it longer if you want. I kind of like the little bit of texture in it. I'm gonna put a squeeze of lemon on top. And then if you want to make it look like kind of fancy, Maybe serve it with like a little bit of extra lemon on the side. Do not judge this book by its cover. This is amazingly delicious. Yum, 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 yum. If you don't like the darker color, clams are not gonna have it go. The clams are gonna be kind of like white color, gray clam color. This is super thick. If you do the one with the clams and all the clam juice, it makes like a really nice soup base. So you can add in extra veggies, cooked veggies. If you have any mashed white sweet potato laying around or mashed any root vegetable, throw a dollop in there, thicken it a little. Or you can do like rice plantain in there or your favorite AIP starch. Throw bits of it in there, even like cooked carrots or something like that. And you can also add in like chopped shrimp or chunks of fish, but you can eat it just like this as a bisque. It's amazing. And if you want to make it richer and creamier, puree it for longer, add a little extra virgin olive oil, add a tablespoon, add 2 tablespoons. It'll just get richer and creamier. So now you have a way to use frozen, any kind of shellfish, frozen clams, frozen oysters, frozen mussels. You can use canned clams. Don't use canned oysters in this. Save those for your hidden liver scramble, okay? And obviously fresh. If you want to see the recipe in print, I've been being pretty good lately about getting my recipes in print up on my blog. So that's realworldaip.com. If you want more recipes that you never see on YouTube, I do an exclusive monthly recipe from my patrons. And I also do free weekly grocery hauls. So you can see what I buy. Every time I go to the grocery store, I post that. That's free in the clip. So you can check out Real World AIP on Patreon. Anyway, here's to you eating more shellfish and getting all your superfoods in and all your nutrition. Let me know if it was helpful to you, and please let me know how you like the bisque. I hope to see you soon. Until then, be healthy.